up, guys? WWTD this week. I'm out here in my molester van. I've got my helpers. There's George. There's Lola. Say hi, Lola. I'm out here. I got my blueprints. Going to make some copies this morning for some plans for my own house. Got to get some copies made. But hey, I wanted to talk about something this week that I haven't talked about before. It's all about dealing with subcontractors. You know, I've said a bunch that this is a people business, right? Especially when you're dealing with sellers. Obviously, it's people business. The better you are with people, the better you're going to do in this business. Well, that also carries over to subcontractors. So if you are dealing with subs, you know, some of you guys might be using a GC, right? So you're basically dealing with the GC most of the time, which changes the dynamic a little bit because then they hire subcontractors and he's basically your hired babysitter slash project manager. When you are project managing and you're dealing directly with subs, it's a little different dynamic, but very similar in terms of what you've got to do when issues arise. So basically, I had to go on site this morning and I meet with an excavation company. The excavation company that we have been using for a while gave us an invoice for clearing of a recent lot. The bid was for $5,000. The invoice came in at 15. A lot of you are probably saying, well, shit, that's a big difference. And it is. It's a huge difference. That's why I wasn't just going to pay the bill. We've had issues in the past with excavation companies. They seem to be one of the worst. Not that all of them are bad, but there's just a lot of variables and sometimes they're not very good at bidding. That's really what it comes down to. And then of course there are some that are just trying to gouge you wherever they can, whether it be excavation contractors or otherwise. It's just kind of how guys work a lot of times, especially when you start doing nicer, higher end homes. They just feel like there might be a little bigger piece of the pie for them as well. It's just human nature. It's how they're wired. But the point of this is you've got to use the human element and your ability to deal with people, whether it be with sellers or whether it be with the people that you hire to take your rough product to a retail product via construction and whatnot. And so I went and met with the guy. The problem is here in Oregon, if I just say, hey, go F yourself, you gave me a bid for $5 and that's all I'm paying, here's what you run the risk of. And it's the same in a lot of other states as well. They can go file a mechanics lien against the property. There doesn't need to be a change order. There doesn't need to be any proven dialogue. There doesn't need to be any of these things in place in order for a subcontractor to simply go and file paperwork to lien your property. And then you, as the property owner, have two options. Number one is you pay them and make them go away. Number two is you bond over it, which means you have to go get a bond, you have to file a bunch of paperwork, you have to hire your attorney. It's costly, it's a pain in the ass, it's brain damage. And then after you bond over it, you're forced to go through a mediation where you have to basically go sit with the subcontractor and their attorney, and then you have to listen to their attorney babble about why they weren't in the wrong, even though they don't really know anything about construction, blah, blah, blah. Been there, done that. We had a situation where we had a bid for $30,000, we got a bill for $42 on a dig out on a property we did back in, I think, 2012. I basically said, you know, go F yourself. You gave us a bid for 30, came in at 42. They went and filed a mechanics lien, and at the end of the day, I ended up having to pay pretty much all of that 42 anyway, and I had to then pay my attorney, pay my bonding fee, all the brain damage that went into sitting down and talking to these people in a negotiation type setting with attorneys and all that stuff. Pain in the ass. So what I did this morning is went there, met with them, used the human element, explain to them why it's unacceptable to do that. Explain to them the difficulty of the position that they put you in by not doing their job properly to begin with. And a lot of times at the end of the day, you'll get some money taken off the bill, but you're still going to probably pay more than what you had originally anticipated, but you're going to save yourself a hell of a lot of headache than just fighting it completely and telling people that you're not paying it and sticking to your guns, and that's that. Even though you might be right, sometimes it's just not worth the fight. And so that's the point of this WWTD, is figure out when it's worth the fight, but understand that in most states, the laws are heavily in favor of the subcontractors in terms of being able to file liens against your projects. They don't have to show proof of change orders. They don't have to show proof of any sort of dialogue saying that the price has changed. They don't have to show any of those things just to file the lien. Once they file the lien, you still have to do all the other brain damage that goes along with that, whether they're right or wrong. And so I think a lot of times it's better to just avoid that and meet with people face to face, utilize the human element, and just try and come to some common ground. We're going to pay more than the $5,000, of course. At the end of the day, it puts them on notice that this type of shit is just unacceptable, but it also prevents me from having to go through a bunch of just time wasting stuff in terms of bonding over, getting an attorney, going through mediation, all that stuff. So use the human element not only with people you're buying properties from, but also with your subcontractors. Now, caveat to that, some subs just suck. If they suck and they're a problem child, or they have drug issues, or they have issues showing up, do shoddy work, get rid of them. But if you think there's something to salvage, you know, you're probably much more apt to work with them than otherwise. And if it's a big bill, really, if it's any bill for that matter, I mean, if it's a small bill, just pay it and get rid of it. But if it's a big bill, meet with them, talk it out, see if you can come to some common ground, because the alternative is just going to be a big pain in your ass. So that's this week's WWTD. Hopefully you guys enjoyed it. As I always say, I may not walk on water, but I do walk on my own job site. See you next week.